It's not really a rhythm game, but rather make your favorite voice actor moan the best possible way as long as you wish game. Sometimes I started the game thinking, man, I so want to spank someone now. Our MC Koyomi is frustrated by all her failed job applications as a teacher as she suddenly gets an acceptance from a school she can't really remember applying to. But with no other options at hand, this job seems like her best chance. The school is oddly far away from Tokyo and secured by a heavy gate. And on the way to the school, in this far-off village, she meets the strangest people: a hungry vampire who can't stand blood, a flirty couple, an old cad, a short-nosed tengu, and a male Yuki onna. And these will be her students for the next year. If that wasn't strange enough, a human girl teaching hundreds of years old yokai about the human world, there also is the phenomenon of them going rampage. Whenever they get too excited or emotional, they are in danger of turning into their uncontrollable yokai form. And there's only way to stop and save them. The core mechanic of the game: whipping and spanking them. In the cellar the school has specifically for that reason, and there the strangest year she could have ever imagined begins. Romancing and spanking yokai who even thank you for that. This is one of the wildest premises I've ever heard in an otome game. And whenever I dare to tell people about that, they just can't shake their head in disbelief. I mean, who can blame them? But before I get ahead of myself, I'll explain the structure of the game. In the long common path, you witness hilarious banters between the classmates while you have school festivals and everything, who are accompanied by character scenes and the spanking sessions. I started playing the sleepy and always hungry vampire Camille who doesn't like blood, and is voiced by Nicolas and Gil's voice actor. He's kind of calm, sticks to himself, and his favorite hobby are video games. He ends up sacrificing his sleep for. Who doesn't do that once in a while? But of course, as a teacher, we have to scold him for that. He's always sleepy, forgetful and hungry, but never ever hungry for blood, though he is a vampire. Nevertheless, sudden vampire problems occur in his route like you would know from Twilight and the likes. And it is Camille who falls in love with the MC rather quickly, and it is then the MC who has to understand her feelings, get to know him better, and make up her mind about a student-teacher relationship. Camille is just adorable and funny, whether he forgets everything or mixes up words. He's a gentle and lovable vampire. The story in his route was okay, but I very much liked his calm and mature approach to love. After him I played the flirt Akito, and I really wish I would have saved him for later. Akito is the son of a wealthy family and a kappa who likes to make it rain so he can snuggle up under one umbrella with a girl he sweet talks. But he also quickly becomes interested in the new teacher as a new toy. Or could he actually be serious? He is a flirt, but a good one. He's surprisingly deep and almost philosophical at times, and pursues her seriously for a very good reason. So it wasn't love at first sight for him, but rather a well-explained love process. But like every flirt character, he has a fan club the MC has to deal with, and a strict father who wouldn't welcome a human into the family. I liked both of these conflicts as they led to dramatic scenes where Henry's voice actor could show his full range of emotions, seeing his beloved girl in danger. Nevertheless, Koyomi is not a heroine who needs to be rescued, but can stand up for herself and the guy she loves. No wonder he is so madly in love with her. At the same time, being the flirt, he also has the most romantic and steamy scenes that earn him my most sexy award. And another great thing about his route are the extremely hilarious banters he has with Toma, calling each other Edo Kappa or short-nosed Tengu. I laughed so hard, my boyfriend actually felt the urge to ask me whether I was alright. Oh god, how much I enjoyed his route. Definitely a route I'm planning on replaying in the future, as it had a really nice intense plot, a lot of steamy romance, and hilarious banters. Afterwards, I played the Ojisan old man cat, voiced by the same voice actor as Young, and thus sounding a bit similar to a specific character in Cupid Parasite. This old-fashioned cat loves books and libraries, traditional tea parties, and plays a traditional instrument, the koto, and has even expertise in fighting, but goes totally crazy if he sees a ball. He used to be a real cat, but was transformed and thus became a cat yokai. And the story behind this Nekomata is surprisingly sad and tragic. I didn't like the route too much because of this sudden shift to the sadness, but overall it was still very sweet. Though a feminine old cat is not really my type. Then I turned to the characters I had very high expectations for. One of them, Toma a Tengu, who is voiced by the same voice actor like Gil in Pure Fiore, with a complex about his short nose. Because you must know, normal Tengu have a nose that is around 20 centimeters long, and his nose is only 13 centimeters long. And that really tortures the poor fellow. Even more as there is a very vain Tengu with an exceptionally long nose always teasing him. And this conflict gets more serious in Toma's character route, as the next chief of the Tengu is to be elected, but something seems off about this whole matter. This character, like, what's his favorite animal? The elephant. Because he's envious of its long nose. And nothing makes him happier than you complimenting his nose. But apart from that, he's a very dear tsundere with a strong will who eagerly pursues the MC. So they have a natural love development with a lot of sweet scenes. And also the conflict in his route was a bit of a bigger scope, so it was interesting to see a bit more of the world building. So his route didn't disappoint me in the slightest. Then I played the route of the bully and male Yuki Onna Sosuke, who is voiced by Linard Midari's Hayato and Tokimeme 4's Ryota. But man, was he mean as this character! He's the kind of guy to invite you snowboarding so he can watch you fall, who freezes your dessert so you can't eat it anymore, and he always acts as if he doesn't care and just wants to be left alone. Though actually, he's the one feeling alone, grown up in an orphanage, and his biggest dream is to graduate from the school to finally be allowed to go to the human world and meet his parents. Yosuke is the only guy who actually is young, being 18, and that also is reflected in his behavior. He often acts like a forlorn child, depending on the MC, while acting as if he wouldn't need her. And at the same time, he constantly teases the MC, tricks her, and laughs about her, not wanting to admit that he actually likes her. And his character route is extremely emotional, as you discover what happened with his parents. And it was so emotional that his crying scene also made me cry. His route doesn't change the world of human and yokai, but it tells a very touching personal story. And for example, in contrast to Very Barricade, I didn't feel that this angst was misplaced, but treated respectfully and still fit the overall funny tone of the game. Lastly, you can play the teacher Shion, who gets unlocked after you've completed one character route. And he can best be characterized as a sadistic teacher, who enjoys whipping the students with an evil grin on his face, and everyone is scared of him and his punishments. But the strangest thing about him is that no one knows his age or where he comes from. His past is shrouded in mystery. Yet he starts worrying about the MC and discloses his past to her, as only she has the ability to change his fate. Oh boy, his route was good. Being with another teacher this time has quite a different dynamic compared to the student-teacher relationships, and it's hard to figure out what actually lies behind his sadistic grin. So it's the MC fighting for their relationship, and for him opening up and allowing himself to be happy. And the gap between the sadistic character and his caring side was really a joy to witness. And I also enjoyed Kuroba's voice actor in this role a lot more. A sadistic teacher really suits him. Now we come to the part you're probably most curious about, the system mechanics, aka the whipping and spanking. The unique selling point of the game. Just say it how it is. I'm not gonna lie, that was also the reason why my friend bought it for me. Probably wanting to witness how I will change having these experiences. But thank you! And I mean, I did boot up the game from time to time thinking, man, I just want to spank someone now. Man, this is good stress relief. So how does it work? First, next to the affection choices, you have SM choices, which influence how the character will react to the punishment. If you raise him to be masochistic, he will utter more words of enjoyment and rapture during the spanking sessions than you will if you trained him sadistically. But overall, the difference isn't too big, so I would say just go with the dialogue choice you like the most. Then there will be 4 instances, if I remember correctly, where you have to spank your ally. 3 times in the common route and 1 time in the character route. And then it's time to spank and save him, because as you save them from becoming rampage and going wild, they will always thank you afterwards and are really grateful and appreciate your work. Yeah, but it isn't so much a rhythm game, but rather a spank your favorite character until he moans the best possible way game. The mechanic is fairly straightforward. Clap the guy when the heart pounds, but that isn't necessarily in tune with the music. And there's no time limit to the clap, so you can first listen to him panting as long as you wish, and clap whenever you feel like it. Using different instruments on different places of his body will trigger different voice lines. And experimenting with that is really the point and fun of this mechanic. So yes, I enjoyed the mechanic a lot. It was embarrassing, but at the same time so much fun, I don't really want to admit to it. But it's not the center of the game. It's super easy, occurs only a few times, and I'm happy to say that even without the mechanic, I would still have enjoyed the game. Though I'm honestly glad it's there. And I'm also quite happy with the art department. As I've already mentioned, the voice acting is top notch. We have almost the whole Pure Fjorde cast, with Young, Gilbert, Henry and Nicola, plus Kuroba and Hayato. I mean, these are really some of the best otome voice actors, aren't they? So it's obviously heaven to have them moan for you. And that alone is reason to buy the game. The CGs are also all very vibrant and colorful in sweet romantic scenes, and what stands out about them is that some of them are like from the first person perspective, which is really cool and immersive with these handsome men. And most of the time they also have multiple versions of a CG, meaning they change a smile or change the hand. So you can look at the CG for longer periods of time during the dialogue. And it's not like in some other games where you have the CG for 2 lines and then it's already the next scene, but you can really enjoy the CG and take it all in. The background music was very enjoyable and varied for the most part. Except for one song, I just can't stand it all, so much that I always turned the music down when it played. And that led to the weird situation because I first started the game last year and turned the music down, and then I restarted it again and didn't even notice that I played Camille's Route without music. But yeah, with music it's a bit better. And except for that track, the music is quite pretty and always fits the mood of the scene. And I liked it way better than the soundtrack she composed for Love or Pretend. Another detail I liked was the Japanesey sound effect, like drums when you click on the menu, for example. That's just a nice addition and fits the Japanese mythological style of the game. I usually don't say much about the background art, but this really stood out to me, as it's with funny details expanding on the lore of the game. Like there's one background with a no Tengu flying sign in the background. And judging from these details alone, this tells me that the game is not just a cash cow for us horny voice actor lovers, but they really put some love and thoughts into it. Now finally, how would I classify the game? I think overall it's a heartwarming comedy with a quirky yet lovable cast of characters who grow on you the more time you spend with them. There are so many funny dialogues or hilarious and strange scenes that will either make you laugh out loud or just shake your head in disbelief, much like that whole spanking mechanic. But beneath all that silly humor, the character roots can tell serious and even sad stories and deal with grave problems. Not to an extent that it would become too angsty or feel misplaced in the overall hilarious tone of the game, but just so much that the story ends up not being shallow and the characters deep and interesting. Especially keep in mind that these are all yokai with different lifestyles and lifespans compared to humans, which might leave a bittersweet taste even after a happy ending. And them being yokai also leads to immense age gaps, like hundreds of years. And the other thing is, of course, that she's technically their teacher, and most of them will continue to call you teacher. But in the yokai world, student-teacher relationships are not forbidden, because it's kind of hard to imagine how a 20-year-old human girl could abuse her power as a teacher against the hundreds of years old Tengu or vampire who also have special magical abilities. And these abilities also prevent the roots from being boring or too slice-of-lifey. As in each root, the yokai heritage also plays a role and gives the root a unique twist. Though I would usually say I'm not a fan of character-driven or slice-of-life stories. I'm a big fan of Klap, as it adds some mythical elements and some small stakes to the story to make them engaging without being too angsty. So going on with almost no expectations, thinking this is just a cash-grabby game for us thirsty voice actor fans, I was more than positively surprised by its lovable characters, strong heroine, well-written dialogue, and meaningful yet sweet stories about love, growing up, or taking responsibility for one's own future. And this even continues in the fan disc. Klap, Kind Love and Punish Fun Party. What a name! But the biggest difference is that in the fan disc, the spanking is no integral part of the gameplay anymore, because the LIs have graduated from school and thus learned how to control themselves even without you spanking them. The FD takes place 1 year after the first game. In the If story, you now work at a human regular school, but but the whole bunch comes visit you as a school exchange and makes your peaceful life a lot noisier, as they just don't manage to behave like normal people. The if story resembles the common route in the original game a bit, in that you witness funny conversations between the characters and their hilarious banters, while you can choose to get close to one of them with a little sweet, slightly open-ended love ending and a character CG, because the other CGs are all in chibi style. In the if story you can also romance two new characters, the cool Dr. Hyuga and the up till now only unromanceable classmate Ryo. But the romance scenes in the if stories are extremely light. What could have been more interesting though are the after stories you then unlock with them. I've only played the one of the Doctor because he seems very cool. But I'm not sure I can even call this romance. He was very reluctant to engage with her romantically and wasn't as forceful or even just proactive as I would have expected him to be. And as I'm not a fan of Ryo, I didn't even bother to play his route because he seems way too childish for me. My enjoyment of the after stories, on the other hand, directly correlated with how much I liked them in the first game. In Thomas' route, some political intrigues are initiated. Sosuke is a bit less mean in the FD, but still a little tsundere and has a fight with the MC because of his family. So again, you notice how young he actually is. And lastly, Akito's route was the most down to earth, as they don't spend much time together anymore due to him being so busy with his father's business and his mother posing some conditions before they are allowed to marry. In Camille's story, his haughty brother wants to pull you apart. In Kanada's story, his old-fashioned worldview gets in the way. In Shion's route, he suddenly starts to change again and has troubles. He feels like he can't share them with the MC. But what all the after stories have in common is that they finally address the problem of the different lifespans between yokai and humans. And every couple finds their own way how to deal with it. What is really sweet to see, and in general you see how their relationship becomes stronger and more mature. In general, this is a good FD, delivering exactly what you would expect. More of the same and more time with the characters. What is kind of a shame though, that it is extremely short. The base game already only took me 5 to 6 hours for each route, and now in the FD the after stories only took me 3 hours and the if story 2 hours. I think that's fairly standard for an FD, so I won't complain. Just something to keep in mind if you don't buy the Switch bundle, where everything's bundled up but have to buy it separately. So I don't think you would miss out on much if you don't play the FD, but of course it's kind of nice to have. What brings me to the difference between the Vita and Switch version is of course that in the Switch version you already have the FD included, and apparently some additional sweet, slightly steamy CGs in the after stories. But what if the game doesn't get localized? Could you learn Japanese with it? I think in general, yes. Most of the talk, especially in the character scenes, is fairly easy, like even upper beginner level, but in the main game at least, there is a lot at the beginning in the common route, a lot of complicated fantasy talk. So I would say that the main game is rather a lower intermediate stage because of these often reoccurring fantasy words that are really specific. But then the FD or the character parts in general are more like an upper beginner stage, I would say. So if you really want to play the game, I would advise you to just skip the complicated part in the common route, like who cares about story if you can spank guys, and then just focus on your favorite guys' character routes. So yeah, if spanking guys doesn't motivate you to learn Japanese, nothing will. So no matter why exactly you buy the game or on which console, make sure you buy it via my links to support the channel, and then I think you are in for some good laughs, combined with a sweet, real and honest love story in a fantasy setting that makes the plot and characters even more engaging. And you will not only have a very special time with them because of the clapping, but also because of the really heartfelt stories.